In this video, we're going to talk about what makes a good fingerstyle guitar. Jim Ferris here, sharing my love of fingerstyle guitar and helping you grow as a player. I think it's a pretty safe thing to say that there's not a one-size-fits-all guitar for everybody. So what we're going to do in this video is talk about some of the characteristics that I think make a good fingerstyle guitar, so that you're a little better informed as you shop for a new guitar. And why am I qualified to talk about this? Well, I've played fingerstyle guitar for most of my life, and I've also sold a lot of guitars in a retail setting. I worked from 1996 to 2003 at a music store called Madison Music in Madison, Wisconsin. And they specialized in high-end and boutique, small builder acoustic guitars. So I've helped literally hundreds of people buy a guitar, and it's something I enjoy doing. So let's talk about what makes a good fingerstyle guitar. Let's start at the neck. I kind of think of necks as falling into categories of either vintage and vintage-inspired modern guitars, and then modern guitars. And with modern guitars, I'm talking about from the early 1970s to the present day. I think with these more modern style guitars, you'll find that the necks tend to be fairly sleek. They're not too thick from fingerboard to the back of the neck. They're not too thin like some of the 60s era guitars were. They're not. Most of them don't have a real wide fingerboard. 1 11/16 at the nut, or 1 3/4 inches are very common dimensions, and they're pretty comfortable for the majority of people to play. Some people prefer a wider neck if they play fingerstyle guitar. I think these players typically will play maybe in open tunings, or maybe they're coming from a classical guitar to steel string guitar, and maybe it's something they're more comfortable with. But for most of us, I would say that a contemporary modern neck is going to be a pretty comfortable feel. What I look for on a neck myself is I want it to feel good in my hand. I want it to be able to allow me to do things like fret over the neck with my thumb, and have a narrow enough string spacing so I can play 2 notes on adjacent strings with 1 fingertip. I look for a guitar so that it has every note is equal in volume. There's no dead spots on the neck. Another thing I look for is make sure that there's no buzzes. Now, buzzes and rattles on the neck can be as a result of climatic changes. As the seasons change, the neck may have more or less relief, and that can usually be straightened out with a adjustment of the truss rod. In some cases, though, I've seen guitars where they just had a high fret. The setup work wasn't good, and it had a high fret, and that didn't get caught in the final inspection. And I am kind of picky about that, because I worked in final inspection when I worked for composite acoustic guitars, and if there was a high fret and it buzzed, it definitely went back to the setup department. Didn't get them very often, but I think if you're buying a brand new guitar and it's got a high fret, it might be indicative of sloppy workmanship in other areas of the guitar, so I would steer clear of that. I also look for a guitar that has good definition in the bass, so that if you're playing more complex chords or doing things with movement in the bass. It's a real round and clearly enunciated note. It's not muddy or thumpy. Some people might like that for the kind of stuff they're playing, but doesn't appeal to me too much. So to recap, comfortable feel, no dead spots, no high frets, and good clarity and volume projection across the entire neck. Now the next thing to consider is the body. This style of guitar that I'm playing here, this dreadnought, has been around for a little over 100 years. And for a lot of people, when they hear the word acoustic guitar, this is the mental picture that they get. And dreadnoughts are great for a lot of things, including fingerstyle guitar. Where I've seen it create the biggest problem wasn't in tonality or that sort of thing, but in the actual physical playing of the instrument. The majority of us, even if we perform standing, the majority of us are going to spend a lot of time playing in a seated position. And this is a big guitar, and I think it one can cause discomfort over time, and also the more of your effort that has to be expended holding a guitar in position means the less time, the less you're able to get around on it from a playing aspect. So I'm right at 6 feet tall, and as you can see, when I'm playing a dreadnought, my shoulder, while it doesn't come up, is a little bit elevated, and it puts me in a position so that I'm reaching over something tall, and then to get my hand in the right position, I have to turn. So if I take the guitar away, I am ending up in this position, and that causes back and shoulder pain for most of us. It's one reason, frankly, that I don't play acoustic guitar that much anymore. I just find the electrics more comfortable physically. So I would suggest that you consider, while you're shopping, looking at body sizes other than just dreadnoughts. Orchestra models, which is another model that Martin originated, like they did the dreadnought, is a good choice. It's based on a triple O body size with a longer scale length, or a triple O for that size, or double O is a good size. And that just means that it's not as wide across the lower bout, which is this part of the guitar, and it's pulled in more at the waist, which is this part of the guitar, okay? Which will make it sit a little lower in your lap, and you won't be reaching up as much, but will be at more of a downward angle and should cause less problems. And they're very robust sounding guitars. I don't think you lose a lot volume-wise. Plus, in my opinion, if you want to be loud with an acoustic guitar, you need to plug it in, because they're not really very loud instruments. So I would look at OMs, triple O's, auditorium size, concert size. What you'll also find is, because they have a smaller body size, they are going to have a little faster response when you pluck a note, which makes a tighter, more focused sound for fingerstyle, which I think is desirable in most cases. Now, the thing besides the body size that makes a lot of difference in how the guitar sounds is going to be the woods that the guitar is made out of. Traditionally, on acoustic guitars, mahogany, rosewood, and maple or tone woods that are used. Nowadays, there's more stuff available as either those woods become less available or more expensive. So you've also got walnut, sapelli, myrtle, Ovancall, woods like that. In some cases, they're like sapelli is being thought of as a substitute for mahogany, that sort of thing. So they're all good woods, and while wood has impact on the sound, as does the body size, it's really in the final deciding thing on an acoustic guitar. It really comes down to how the builder has built it and braced it as to what their final voice will be. You may hear a difference between two of the same models made out of different woods, but that's where you'll really hear the biggest difference, I think. But let's talk about woods a little bit. For the top, the woods that are most traditional for a steel string guitar is a type of spruce. Sitco has been used a lot because it has a real high strength to weight ratio, which means it's more resistant to tension that's put on it by the strings and that sort of thing. It tends to have a real bright, clear sound and a good dynamic range, which means it'll be responsive if you play it lightly fingerstyle, and also responsive if you bash on it with a pick, like playing rhythm guitar stuff and that sort of thing. One thing that I think makes Sitka a superior choice, if you're looking for an all-around guitar that you'll be playing some fingerstyle on and some finger picking, is when it's strummed vigorously, it doesn't get a compressed, choked sound like cedar does. Cedar is a traditional top wood for classical guitars, but over the last few years it's become more widely used on steel string guitars. This is a cedar top, and cedar tends to have a warm, round sound and be responsive to a light touch. The downside of it is if you're looking for an all-around kind of guitar and going to be strumming it some and that sort of thing, I think that it tends to get kind of choked and compressed sounding, and I don't think it's a very pleasant sound. Your mileage may differ, as they say, but as a wood strictly on something to play fingerstyle on, I think it's a great choice, and it's really my preference on a flat top steel string for what I do. Redwood has been more commonly used in recent years, and redwood tends to have the warmth and roundness of cedar, but also some of the definition and clarity of spruce. So I think it's a real good wood to consider. You typically see it on more high-end stuff, though. But if you're shopping for a Loudon or Breedlove or something like that, that's a little more high-end than a production guitar, then it's certainly worth considering. When it comes to backs and sides, the three biggies of traditional woods are going to be rosewood, mahogany, and maple. Rosewood tends to be a real lush, warm-sounding wood. Tends to have real complex overtones to it. I think it's one of the woods that sounds best when you're sitting behind it playing, because you get all that warm bloom of the note coming up. It's got a big low end and tends to have clear trebles. Maybe not as mid-rangey as mahogany and that sort of thing, but I think especially if you're a vocalist and you're looking for something to accompany yourself, it's a good choice, because our vocal range tends to be mid-range-ish, and that sits nicely in the blend with the rosewood and spruce guitar. Mahogany tends to be have a warm, woody sound with a pretty focused mid-range, and I think that makes it good if you're I think it's a good wood if you're playing traditional music, especially well, bluegrassy kind of stuff and blues and that kind of thing. And also, if you're going to be playing a lot of bottleneck and acoustic blues, getting an all mahogany guitar, including the one with having a mahogany top on it, like the old Martin 17 series and their newer 15 series, is a great choice because I think it's real mid-rangey and focused and good for those that application. Maple tends to be have a lot of clarity to it. It is going to be a pretty bright sound and will maintain good note separation with a tightness in the bass, so it's not real overtony, and a well-balanced mid-range. It's because it's got a quick note decay typically. That's one reason why you see a lot of acoustic electrics with it. In fact, if you look at the signature guitars that Doyle Dykes has had made, a lot of those, or maybe all of them, tend to be maple because it's got a clear voice. When you're playing it amplified, because the low end dies off a little quicker than, say, a rosewood guitar, it doesn't begin the feedback cycle. You don't get that low end woofiness that then starts to feedback. So I think it's a great choice for that. Myrtle has also become more popular over the years. I think Breedlove may have been the first people to build with that. It has a good mid-range with good clear note separation, and is good choice if you're playing fairly complex chords and that sort of thing where you want to hear each individual voice in the chord. Walnut is also another alternative wood that tends to have clear highs and strong mids and a real focused and tight low end. And some of the best fingerstyle guitars that I've ever heard were made out of walnut. I don't know if Taylor does it anymore, but for a time they were making a walnut series, and I just thought they were great sounding guitars. Probably, so the different tone woods are going to have an impact on the sound, without doubt. For me, one of the bigger impacts is going to be whether the guitar is all solid wood or laminate woods. I would say to always get a guitar with a solid wood top, because laminate top is a kind of a fancy word for plywood, which means it's multiple layers of wood that are glued together into a sheet. And even if it has, let's say, spruce on the top facing out, it doesn't mean that all the wood in the different layers, different plies, is going to be spruce or any other tone wood. And because the top's vibration has such a big impact on sound, having something that is kind of dead and doesn't flex as much, I think hurts the sound. I think having a solid back is important, because the top and the backs are the two parts of the acoustic guitar that vibrate the most and are going to create the most, have the biggest impact on the sound. You can tell if a top or back is solid, well, of course, by reading the manufacturer's information, but you can also look at the top, and if you see a growth ring, you see the little striations in the top, that's growth rings that were in the wood, the trees that was growing. If you look at the sound hole and you follow one of those growth rings along, when it gets to the sound hole, it ought to just disappear, right into the beveled edge of the sound hole. A solid laminate top, rather, when you look at the edge of the sound hole, it's going to look chopped off. And that's a sure giveaway that it's a laminate top. You can also tell by looking at the back. If you look at the part of the back that's opposite the sound hole, and if you see any kind of figuring in the wood, a little knot or growth pattern or something, and then look in through the sound hole and see that same appearing knot or striation or whatever you want to call it, you know the back's solid too. With sides, I don't think that it makes that big a difference. In fact, I probably prefer a laminate on the sides, because the sides, there's not a lot of vibration. It's holding the top and the back together. And think about it, a lot of times when you're moving, if you get up and are going to put your guitar up, you may be carrying it like this with the side out. And that's when you're more prone to bump into the desk or a chair or something. And if you do it hard enough, you'll get a split. And I think solid woods are more prone to split, and laminates much less prone to split. So, and of course, like all this information I'm giving you on this topic, you've got to take it with a grain of salt. One of the world's most famous guitarists was Django Reinhardt, and the Selmer Macafari guitar that he is most known for playing was all laminate rosewood. Oh, the top wasn't, but back and sides were all laminate rosewood. And I doubt anybody ever came up to him and said, "You're not bad, but you'd probably sound a lot better if your guitar had all solid tone woods." So you got to take it with a grain of salt. So ultimately, what you're going to look for, we'll recap here. You want to look a neck that's comfortable, that projects evenly on all the notes, doesn't buzz or have any frets, has good clarity and note separation in the bass. You want a body that's comfortable to hold, that doesn't create an awkward playing position for you. And you want to select a tone wood combination that's going to be reflective of what you want to sound like. You want mainly solid woods in the guitar, not much laminate. And if you keep all those things in mind while you're shopping, I think you'll be off to a good start. The ultimate deciding factor for me is how the builder has built the guitar. Every guitar manufacturer tends to have a distinct sound associated with their guitar. And I think that that's going to be a big deciding factor for you. Also, this is something where you got to go with your gut. If it feels good and you like the sound of it and it's comfortable to play, then that's it. And another factor I'll throw in is I think that it needs to look appealing to you. I think when you open the case, you ought to go, "Oh man, that's my guitar. It's a beauty. Can't wait to play it." I cannot tell you how many guys I've seen come into a guitar shop. You ask them what they're looking for. They say, "Oh, I don't care what it, I'm only interested in how it sounds. I don't care what it looks like." And then they'll walk around and look at the guitars displayed on the wall, and they'll pick one based on appearance. That's the thing that most intrigues everybody. "Oh, that's a cool looking guitar. I want to try that." So don't forget to put appearance into the equation as you're shopping. Okay, I think that's covered everything. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. If you find this video helpful, give me a thumbs up. If you hadn't subscribed and like this kind of content, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to offer material support to me, besides feeding the algorithm, you can drop a tip in my tip jar. There'll be information for that in in the description area, and consider visiting my online store where I sell guitar-related merch, apparel and mug, coffee cups, and that sort of thing. Okay, so until next time.